I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about the draft last night, the NBA draft. Obviously, there's a lot that went on. Predictably so, Zion Williamson went number 1 overall, went to the New Orleans Pelicans. Ja Morant went number 2 overall. The Knicks drafted RJ Barrett. The Garden was excited. People were cheering for the first time in years. Got to give them a lot of credit for that. We'll talk about that as the show progresses. The Los Angeles Lakers drafting on behalf of the Pelicans and ultimately the Atlanta Hawks as the Pelicans surrendered the number 4 overall pick that they acquired from the Lakers in the Anthony Davis deal to the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks moved up and grabbed DeAndre Hunter out of Virginia. This kid, he's going to be a threat from 3. He defends on the perimeter. He dominated the national championship game, was widely considered to be the 4th best player in the draft, and the Atlanta Hawks got him. I was a bit perplexed at Darius Garland out of Vanderbilt going number 5 to Cleveland only because this kid Colin Sexton is your point guard there. You're trying to pair them both together. That's fine because they can both ball. The flip side is if one is hell-bent, if both are hell-bent on being your point guard, you got a different kind of problem. Maybe they could play together. I consider them both relatively undersized. It's not like one is Steph Curry and the other is Klay Thompson, who's a legit 6'6", 6'7". You have a situation here when you look at both of these guys, they're relatively small. But Garland can ball. He can play. He's got a sweet stroke. There's no question about that. So more power to Cleveland. Jared Culver out of Texas Tech went to the national championship game. Phoenix Suns picked him up at 6. Kobe White out of North Carolina, who the Knicks called in for a last-minute second interview. He predictably went. They prognosticated and predicted he would fall to number 7 at the Chicago Bulls, and that's exactly where he ended up. Of course, Jackson Hayes is a project out of Texas. The Hawks grabbed him at number 8. The Wizard, Hakamura out of Gonzaga, they grabbed him at number 9. The Hawks took Cam Reddish out of Duke. So when you look at the Hawks right now, if Reddish shows up and plays, and we know that he can, if DeAndre Hunter is worth the number 4 overall pick, which we all perceive him to be worth, then you know what? The Atlanta Hawks had a pretty damn good draft. And you've got to certainly call them winners. Nobody's a bigger winner than New Orleans with Zion Williamson. We recognize that, along with David Griffin showing the leadership that he is showing and reminding everybody that Zion is not going to be a savior. This is Drew Holiday's team. There are pieces on this squad. We believe we have the potential to compete. And, oh, by the way, Zion is only going to add to that. The man's not even 19 years of age yet. He's 18. He's going to be 19 in about 2 weeks. He's 282 pounds with a 45-inch vertical leap. He's a man-child, an absolute man-child. And I think he's going to be absolutely terrific. I'm still depressed that the New York Knicks didn't get him, that somehow, some way the NBA didn't fix the draft lottery to make sure a team like the New York Knicks in the large market could end up getting a Zion Williamson. I can't believe that the Knicks and the Nets the Knicks and the Lakers ended up with the 3rd and 4th overall pick. When they went to commercial the night of the draft lottery, they went to commercial after getting you all the spots up to number 5. And the last 4, they waited for commercial. They went to a commercial, not after the top 5 picks. They went to a commercial before they announced the top 4 picks. So you had a situation where it was New York and L.A. with New Orleans and Memphis. And don't tell me you believed one or two things. Zion Williamson was going to end up in New York, or he was going to end up in L.A. with LeBron. That is what you believed. That is what we found ourselves feeling. And instead of that, the New Orleans Pelicans and the Memphis Grizzlies end up with the top 2 picks in the NBA draft. That damn Mark Tatum, that deputy commissioner in the NBA. My God, I love him. He's such a nice guy. But I didn't like him that night. Oh, I'm still mad. He laughs at me every time he sees me, ladies and gentlemen. I said, you couldn't have fixed the lottery? Certainly we can't sit up there and talk and give credence to conspiracy theorists now. New Orleans and Memphis beating out New York and L.A. I mean, what the hell has this world come to? That's where we are. But it's what happened. And that's why Zion Williamson and Ja Morant ended up in New Orleans and Memphis, top 2 overall picks. And it is what it is. RJ Barrett ends up going to number 3. DeAndre Hunter ends up going 4th, but to Atlanta. And we go from there. Getting into the New York Knicks. I'm on the record last night, and I tweeted this, and, a lot of people were taken aback a little bit by it. I wish I could tell you I gave a damn, but I don't. When I saw RJ Barrett crying in his father's arms while his father was talking to ESPN, I wrote last night, and I put it on all my social media pages. This moment epitomized what I saw a lot tonight. Black fathers having played significant roles in their child's lives, obliterating the stigma about us that has been disseminated for decades. Beautiful night. Some people took offense to that. I want to be very, very clear. Y'all can kiss off. Now, I do understand that various communities out there all have our troubles. And first and foremost, before we're black, white, Hispanic, or Latino, whatever word is you deem most appropriate, Asian American, Native American, Jewish, whatever the case may be, we're all human beings first. And I totally get that. And I certainly understand the point that no single community is perfect and devoid of troubles and trials and tribulations. But when it comes to the issues of fatherhood, do not tell me that African-American males have not taken a major hit because of how we are viewed and how we are talked about. And when I saw RJ Barrett, when I saw Ja Morant and others by their father's side, with their parents talking about the hard work that they put in, the sacrifices that were made, the things that were done to ensure that a child's dream could ultimately be fulfilled through the proper channels, hard work, dedication, commitment, no shortcuts. It was a beautiful, beautiful thing to see. Barrett and Ja Morant in particular. In Barrett's case, break down in tears, and Ja Morant clearly holding them back, giving props to their fathers. As a black man, it touched me. And that's why I said what I said, and I meant what I meant. And I still mean it to this day, and I will mean it moving forward. I'm going to take a moment and step away from the world of sports to say to y'all that although the black community has various troubles, and there is no denying that, I cannot tell you how offensive it is as a black man and as a father for the depiction and the stigma that has been perpetuated and disseminated for decades about black fathers. It is offensive to us. There are many, many, many men who are black, who love their children and are an integral part of their children's lives and make the necessary sacrifices and exhibit this necessary commitment just to make a better life for our children. And although you do have some deadbeat dads in our community, that don't mean they don't exist in other communities. And it doesn't mean that that particular plight is not exaggerated in our community. And so when I saw the opportunity to bring attention to that, that's exactly what the hell I did. And for anybody that has a problem with that, y'all could kiss my you-know-what. I want to be very clear about that. Now let me get back to sports. Having said all that I've said about RJ Barrett, doesn't mean I don't have questions. I got questions about his use of his right hand. I got questions about the consistency of his jump shot. I'm wondering what kind of NBA player he's going to be. He will be good. I'm talking about greatness. I don't know whether that's going to be the case. I don't know whether he's going to be capable of carrying that mantle for the New York Knicks. I do know that when it comes to RJ Barrett, he has the temperament, he has the dedication, and he has the kind of personality that's made for Madison Square Garden. He's not just a New York Knick. He wants to be here. He wants the bright lights of Madison Square Garden descending upon him. He wants the pressure. He ain't running from it. He ain't shying from it. Now, he only shot 30% from three-point range in college. Zion Williamson shot better from three-point range than RJ Barrett. Yes, he did. But let me be very, very clear about something. It wasn't because RJ Barrett didn't take those shots. He was always looking to take those shots. He didn't shy away from any moment. He didn't disappear. He didn't wilt beneath the pressure. That's not what he did. They just didn't fall. Except that now that you're in the NBA and you're getting paid to do this, they're going to need to fall a little bit more frequently. RJ Barrett. They're going to need to fall a little bit more frequently. I have no doubt he's working on his game. I have no doubt he's dedicated and focused. I have no doubt that he'll be a model citizen. I have no doubt that he'll be a pillar of the community. He's a good kid. He really is. And being represented by Bill Duffy, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you, it don't get much better. Don't get much better than my man Duff. That's no knock against Rich Paul and the Goodwin brothers and Jeff Swartz and Jeff Wexler and David Falk and all these other people. Bill Duffy's one of the best to have ever done it. I'm here to tell you. He is. And I'm here to tell you something right now. His father being by his side, Coach K being his collegiate coach, Zion being his teammate, they know what RJ Barrett can bring to the table. I'm just hopeful that we'll see it on the next level in concert with Kevin Knox, Dennis Smith Jr., etc. I'm not thinking about no Frank Ntilikina. I'm sorry. I'm just not. That's just not how I feel about him. But I definitely have aspirations, and I'm definitely looking forward to this upcoming season because I really want to see what this is all about. I really do. 888-SAY-ESPN, it's 888-729-3776. Zion Williamson is a man-child. And I want to get back to David Griffin, the executive VP, president of basketball operations, whatever his title is, for the New Orleans Pelicans. I got to tell you something. My fondness, I've always been fond of David Griffin. Always been fond of him. He's a good man. And I like him, genuinely. I truly do. And he knows his basketball. He knows what the hell he's doing. But I got to tell you, last night was one of his more impressive moments. To draft Zion Williamson, to stand before the media and say he is not a savior. He is going to be a part of what we're doing here. The kid hasn't even turned 19 yet. To say this is Drew Holiday's team, who, by the way, is an all-world defender and an all-star caliber player. To say this is his team. Ladies and gentlemen, that means something. You got Lonzo Ball there now. You got Brandon Ingram there now. Zion's your guy. Drew Holiday's there. Julius Randle is still there for the moment. And they're trying to build something. They've accumulated picks because that's what David Griffin has been doing. But to sit up there and to say he's not a savior, Zion is not a savior, and to remind us that there's a veteran on here who has shown up in the postseason in the past in Drew Holiday, to allude to the players that you acquired in Ball, Ingram, and Josh Hart, to just draft Nickeil Alexander-Walker with the 17th pick, Silver with the 35th pick, to have protected first-round picks in 2020, 2021, a first-round swap with the Lakers in 2023, an unprotected first-round pick from the Lakers in 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, David Griffin has done a hell of a job. And oh, by the way, how about re-signing or making sure that Alvin Gentry returned as the coach of the Pelicans? Let me tell you something about Alvin Gentry. Record doesn't necessarily speak to it. Clippers, Detroit Pistons, Phoenix Suns, now New Orleans Pelicans. He was a championship coach as an assistant with Steve Kerr and the Golden State Warriors before he got the New Orleans job. Let me be very, very clear to you about something you need to understand about Alvin Gentry. The man can coach. The man knows basketball. And having said that, I don't think ever ever in life have I been more impressed with Alvin Gentry than what we saw last year. Take a moment, ladies and gentlemen, pause, step back just a little bit, and think about what Alvin Gentry endured. Through no fault of his own, he's coaching his team. They had just went to the semifinals of the Western Conference playoffs a year earlier, going up against Golden State with Anthony Davis and Drew Holiday. Alvin Gentry comes back this year, right when the season began, right before the regular season began. Anthony Davis departs from his former agent and signs with Rich Paul and Clutch Sports. I'm telling you what's happened. So he does that, right? And it's clear why he's doing it. He's going to want out of New Orleans. Everybody and their grandmama knew that. And the likelihood is that because there's Rich Paul, you knew that L.A. was going to be mentioned in the picture. That's just something you knew, okay? That's just something you knew, all right? So what happens? Alvin Gentry is the coach. Y'all trying to win basketball games, get back to the postseason. But not only does Alvin Gentry get informed that Anthony Davis is going to come one out, not only does it get publicized, not only does Magic Johnson get on the phone with former GM Dell Demps, who refuses to accept the same deal that David Griffin ultimately agreed to with the Lakers, but also now Alvin Gentry is told Anthony Davis can't play in the fourth quarters of games. We're going to sit him out. So Anthony Davis might drop 30 in the first three quarters, and they might be in line to win games, but now we got to pull him out to play the younger guys. Number one, you wanted to avoid him getting hurt, and number two, you didn't necessarily want to win because you knew you weren't going anywhere with him because he wasn't going to play for you, and as a result, it compromised your entire damn season. Meanwhile, Dell Demps ain't around to answer questions in front of the microphone and the television cameras. Nor is owner, Mrs. Benson. Nobody. Alvin Gentry is left there to hang out and dry. And they still won 33 games. They still played hard as hell. They still didn't appear to be a team devoid of the necessary intellect, schematically or otherwise, to know what they're doing when they went out there. Alvin Gentry, in going 33-49 last year, did a hell of a job, considering the circumstances. You took his ultimate weapon away from him. You inundated him with a bunch of political, bureaucratic nonsense that most people in this position should never have to deal with. Ever. That's what you did to Alvin Gentry. David Griffin, who's had a long-standing relationship with Alvin Gentry, gets the job, comes in there, and immediately recognizes a coaching change is not what we need here, and keeps Alvin Gentry on board. I'm not only happy for Alvin Gentry, I'm proud of him. He did a hell of a job, considering the circumstances. I would have liked him to be a little less truculent with the media when he was answering some of these questions. Who am I to sit up there and say somebody should be less truculent? But you know what I'm saying. I mean, it's obvious what questions you're going to have to answer. But he did the best he could under very, very annoying and stressful circumstances because he didn't know David Griffin was going to get the job. He didn't know that David Griffin ultimately was going to get the job and then he ended up being kept on as head coach. For all he knew, he was on his way out the damn door because everybody knew that Dell Demps was going to be out the door, and Dell Demps was the one who hired him. Yet and still, Alvin Gentry did his job. I think last year, Alvin Gentry at times in the past, year before, they won 48 games, went to the playoffs. He's been in Phoenix in 2009, 2010, when, guess what? They won 54 games. They won 54 games and went to the conference finals. I got news for you. Alvin Gentry has had some success as a head coach. I'm here to tell you, he did the best. Last year was his best job. Last year was his best job. So I just think it's important to understand what we're dealing with here. It's important to understand what time it is and to give respect where it's due when it comes to Alvin Gentry and the job that he's done and a good position that the New Orleans Pelicans are in because they got an organization. When we hear about the New York Knicks and struggles and who they may or may not get, you know why people are questioning that? Because they're questioning the organization. Some people are questioning Steve Mills. They are. Most of the questions are about James Dolan. But Steve Mills doesn't escape scrutiny. There are people who have asked about his relationship with Carmelo Anthony. There are people who have asked about what kind of job he's done. So you got to look at it from that perspective. I don't, because I think he could do the job. But it ain't all about Dolan, but clearly it's about the organization. Why are the Nets considered a more attractive landing spot than the Knicks? Because of the organization with Sean Marks and Kenny Atkinson. Why were the Lakers a joke until they acquired Anthony Davis? Because of the organization. Jeannie Buss letting Linda Rambis and Kurt Rambis get in the mix. Rob Pelinka, an agent who became a GM. That Magic Johnson didn't have the power to move. Organizations matter. And the New Orleans Pelicans appear to have a first-class one now that David Griffin is in charge. Congratulations to him and Alvin Gentry on the job that they've been doing thus far. It has been the epitome of professionalism, where vision has been displayed and a plan has clearly been crafted and is in the process of being exercised. Can't ask for more than that from an organization. Can't ask for more than that. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. You are listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Back with your calls and more in a minute.